going on, everybody? Thank you so much for coming back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the Autopsy of Jane Doe. So I was actually recommended this movie over a year ago at this point by my friend of mine from work. She asked me to check this movie out when I announced that I was going to be doing a Halloween horror themed last October, and I told her I would throw it on my never-ending list of movies. And over the course of the last year, she's asked me on multiple occasions to check this movie out. So I finally checked it out after she asked me at the beginning of this month to check it out again. I told her I would definitely check it out this time, and I figured I'd have somebody else check it out with me. So I have Benny Wan Strikes Back in this video. We're going to hear from him in just a little bit, but a big thanks to my friend Adrian for recommending this film for me. I hope you enjoy the review, and a big thanks to my friend Benny Wan for being in this video. We're going to hear from him in just a little bit, but let's get into this movie. So the Autopsy of Jane Doe starts out, and we're introduced to our main characters in the film, played by Brian Cox and Emile Hirsch. Right out of the gate, I had no idea what this movie was about, other than the fact that there was an autopsy on a Jane Doe. For anybody who doesn't know what a Jane Doe is, or a John Doe, it's essentially when a body is located at a crime scene or anywhere in general, and they aren't able to identify the body. So in this movie, of course, you have a Jane Doe, and there's going to be an autopsy, and that's all I knew. I didn't know who the cast was. I knew nothing else about the movie. But after checking this movie out, and as it started, and I saw that Brian Cox and Emile Hirsch were in this, I was definitely interested because I love those two. They're great actors, so I was definitely curious once the movie started. And yeah, they play two coroners, and you've seen this relationship before. You have the father who takes his profession very, very seriously. He has the son who followed in his footsteps, except the son has a secret to tell his dad that he doesn't want to tell him just yet, which is that he's planning on moving on with the love of his life to do something else, to go somewhere else, but he isn't ready to tell his dad that he's leaving just yet. So we've seen that kind of thing before. The father who takes his career very, very serious, the son who followed in the footsteps, and now the son's looking to go do something else, but he doesn't really have it in him to tell his dad just yet. And so right out of the gate, you have that interesting dynamic. Though we've seen it before, I think that Brian Cox and Emile Hirsch do a great job of acting in this film. They are the main focus of this movie. There are other actors and characters that come in here and there, but for the most part, this is a very claustrophobic and very contained film that focuses primarily on these two characters. They play two coroners, and after some sort of murder was found, or some home that they assume as murders was just a home that has tons of dead bodies all over the place, the police end up finding this body under the house in the basement, dug underground. But what stands out to them the most, outside of the fact that this body is incapable of being identified, is the fact that the body has no decaying at all. It's literally found in the dirt under the house, has no wounds that are at least visible to anybody, and yeah, it's just this dead body under the ground that has literally no decaying and no body wounds. So yeah, they're definitely interested to see what's going on. They end up bringing it late at night during a storm to the coroner's office. The son's about to leave with his girlfriend, and he just doesn't feel right leaving his dad there to continue doing work, so he decides to stay with his dad and look over this body and do the autopsy, and that's when crazy shit starts to happen. Now that you guys know what the premise of the film is, let's go ahead and hear what Benny had to say about this, and we'll get into my thoughts.
Hey everybody, it's Benny One. I'm back with Anthony to review a creepy ass movie, everybody. That's right, we're reviewing the Autopsy of Jane Doe. This is a horror, mystery, thriller type movie that is about a father and a son who are both coroners, and they get a dead body that is a Jane Doe delivered to them from a murder scene, or at least they think a murder scene, and they are pulled into a very complex mystery to discover who this Jane Doe is. And this movie, I gotta tell you guys, I had never heard of this movie before. I honestly wasn't quite sure how it was gonna be, how I was gonna feel about it, and after watching it, I gotta say, I was pretty fucking impressed. Not gonna lie. Brian Cox plays the father in this movie, and Emile Hirsch plays the son. They're basically, and our Jane Doe, they're basically the three main stars of the movie. It's basically just them. So, down in a morgue. And so I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was great. I enjoyed the story. The way that they told the story in this movie, it was a very unique way to tell a story, because they were telling the story through this Jane Doe's dead body as they kept peeling back and doing the autopsy and discovering things that were about her body and like who she was, and that's how the story was told. And in movies where you see autopsies, it's usually just like a small little part in a movie, and I had never seen that plot being like explored and done this way that it was done in this movie, and I thought it was great. And as they're going through and doing this, it builds the suspense and the tension and just creepiness throughout the entire movie while they're doing this freaking autopsy. It's very just crazy. The plot, the way that they did the plot in this movie, I was so intrigued and on the edge of my seat the entire time I was watching this movie. Like, I really was. I thought they did a great job, because you would think a movie that takes place down in a morgue with literally 2 people and a dead body, you wouldn't really get a good story out of that. But I gotta tell you, they did a great job with the story in this movie and keeping you on the edge of your seats. You gotta give him props. You gotta give him props for that. So the movie is creepy as hell too. Just so you guys know, you want to watch a good movie, like a scary horror movie type, suspense thriller type movie, check this movie out. It's on Netflix. I was creeped out by it. It's creepy as hell, and the setting down in a morgue and like the atmosphere that they build, because it's dark, down in a basement in a morgue. There's a freaking storm going on. Like, it just, the atmosphere and the setting alone set the movie up for creepiness, like creepiness galore. And the movie does all sorts of crazy, creepy ass shit that is going on in the movie. I'm not gonna dive into what it is, because it does have to do with the story of the movie. But the movie overall, and it messes with your brain a little bit. Like, there's things that go on in this movie that you're like, is that shit really happening or is it not happening? And when they get farther into this autopsy of this Jane Doe, like, shit gets crazy. Like, the one thing is like they keep showing these shots of her eyes, like her just whitened, plain eyes, like, and they just show these shots of her like you're just waiting for her to blink or move or something. And like, it's almost like they somehow figured out a way to make her an actual character in the movie without her literally ever doing anything, ever moving, blinking, whatever. She's literally dead. Like, but they somehow figured out how to make her feel like she actually was a living character in this movie. And that's why you gotta give it to these guys. They did a great job with this movie. I totally recommend this movie. I think this is a good movie for the month of October. Like, seriously, we still got time. You guys could check it out. It's on Netflix. I enjoyed the shit out of this movie. So I'm going to send it back to you, man. Thanks for having me again. And I'll be catching you on Tube Laters, because we have spoken.
A big thanks to my friend Benny for being in this video. As usual, you can find the links to his channel down below in the description box. Go give him some love. And I'm glad you enjoyed this movie, man, because so did I. I haven't really gotten into it just yet, so let's do that now. I really thoroughly enjoyed this movie. There are elements about it that definitely feel like your typical paranormal, generic horror film, but what I enjoyed about it is that it does have this different feel and vibe to it, and I think that they took a premise that could have easily been boring and easily could have been a very short portion of a film and expanded it into a very interesting mystery, crime, paranormal film. I didn't know anything about this movie going into it, but yeah, as the movie started to uncover more secrets and things were starting to be discovered about this body and the way that they chose to uncover the story about this body and what's going on, I feel like it was really, really well done. It was crafted in a way for you to keep engaged in what was going on while also being confused as to what you're seeing, but not so confused to the point where you're kind of like, what the hell is going on? I don't like this. It's more of like, man, I want to know what's going on here. Like, oh, what is that referencing, or what is this? And I really enjoyed that about this movie. There's something about the movie that kept me really engaged throughout. And one thing I really enjoyed about the film is that the sound mix of the film is really eerie and creepy. There's a very subtle use of different sound effects, and there are moments of the film where there isn't really much going on as far as the audio, but there's a sense of ambiance and creepiness in these silent moments. I watched it at night with all the lights off and a really good sound system that I have here at my house, and so these moments that were silent, it was still filled with a sense of ambiance. There wasn't much going on as far as the dialogue, but there are small moments of noises and sound effects that definitely are creepy and eerie throughout this film. There are moments that you don't even need to see anything, but it's the implication of things based on sound. Specifically, this thing that they've set up earlier in the film where they set up the fact that all of the dead bodies have little bells attached to their toes just in case they are still alive and they move. And yeah, when you hear one of those little bells throughout the course of the film, it's very eerie and very creepy. And the way that they use it is throughout the film is very sparingly. You know, it's not used too much, but when it's used, it's effective. And I really enjoy that about the sound of this film. I think the performances in this film are all around really, really great. This film primarily focuses on Brian Cox and Emile Hirsch, but I think that they really drive the film and make for a really great father-son duo in the mix of this really terrible situation. And the biggest thing that I really enjoyed about this movie is as you watch it, you really have no idea what's going on with this body, but as they continue to get further into the autopsy, they learn more and more and more and more, not only about the body, but things that are happening outside of the body. There's something really interesting and some fucked up shit that's going on with this body, and I really enjoy the way that the writers kept this film engaging. I really enjoy the way that this film is directed, and on overall, I found this to be a really good horror film. And I think that the title and the poster can fall under that very generic side of horror. I think anybody who would see this scrolling through Netflix, which I had actually seen it a couple times scrolling through Netflix, I think you could watch this and definitely just kind of feel like, oh, this is going to be a kind of generic horror film. I don't even care to watch it. And I think that that's probably why it's a bit of an underrated film, I think. It's a film that I think has a lot to offer for the paranormal genre. It takes a concept that could have easily been boring and it stretches it out to keep it entertaining and engaging. I think if you're looking for a horror film to check out this Halloween season, definitely check it out. It's on Netflix. If you already have Netflix, there's no extra charge to you. It's a movie that's just been sitting there, and I think that a lot of people just haven't seen it. I had never heard about it until Adrian brought it to my attention. So a big thanks to my friend Adrian for telling me to check this movie out. But yeah, I really enjoyed this film. I thought it was well shot, well acted, and the special effects throughout the film are believable. There isn't too many special effects in the film, but yeah, I really enjoy the fact that they were able to take a story like this, keep it really contained while also keeping it really kind of big in a lot of ways. They took a story that is very contained, very self-focused, and takes place in one location with only two main characters, but they expanded it and allowed the lore and the mythology around this body and what they're discovering about the body to be pretty engaging. I really enjoyed that about this film. Now, I think my biggest negatives about this film, without a doubt, would probably have to be that there are a number of jump scares in the film. Some of them are effective and some of them feel earned, but a lot of it was, you know, very predictable. I knew it was coming. You could tell that there was going to be a jump scare here and there and there and here. So every time that they were setting up for a jump scare where the camera would linger somewhere for far too long, anybody who's a seasoned horror fan would see those things coming from a mile away. So, you know, what really got me in those moments was really mainly the kind of maybe the loud noise that kind of made me like startled, but I knew that it was coming. It wasn't necessarily something that scared me. And I think the only other negative that I have, which isn't really a negative too much, is just kind of wanting more out of the story. And that's not to say that the story in the film is bad, but simply to say that I feel like I wanted to know more about the body. They leave you with a sense of mystery still. You are learning things about the body. There are things that are being unearthed as time goes on, but the further you get into the story and once the movie wraps up, there are still things you're wondering, like, what is up with this body and where did it come from in fullness? You know, like, I want to know the full story behind. But the further you get into the story and the more you learn about the body, the more you want to know about the body, and there's still this element of mystery at the end of the movie about the body. And I think this movie toes that line pretty well, giving the audience enough for you to understand the basic idea of what's happened to this body and why what's happening because this body is here is happening, but at the same time doesn't leave you kind of completely without any answers. You know, it definitely leaves you right in the middle where you have enough answers to know what's going on and to kind of create your own imagination of what's going on. But you know, it doesn't necessarily leave you without any answers at all and kind of leaves you confused. You know, recently I actually just did a review for the movie The Empty Man, and in that case, for that movie, I just feel like they just didn't explain anything. That's a movie that just went too far in one direction of leaving things under-explained for the audience. And I think that this movie does a great job of letting you discover what's going on with this body and learning more about it throughout the course of the story, while also kind of leaving you wanting to know a little bit more. There's no sequel to this movie from what I've seen, but I am very curious to see if they ever make another one of these. I would love to see another installment with this body to learn more about it, but maybe we don't need one of those. Maybe that would kind of ruin the mystery of it. But I did really enjoy this film, so a big thanks once again to my friend Adrian from work for telling me to check this movie out. I definitely appreciate it. I hope you're happy that I finally checked it out. And a big thanks to Benny for checking this movie out and being in this review with me. You can find a link to his channel down below in the description box. Go give him some love. Let him know I sent you. Hit that like button down below if you guys enjoyed this video. Comment your thoughts. I want to know if you guys have seen this movie. Do you like this movie? Do you not like this movie? And if you haven't seen this movie, I definitely recommend it. It's on Netflix and I think it's worth a watch. It is definitely pretty creepy though, so if you're not into scary movies or things that are kind of eerie and creepy and it's more of something that kind of creeps you out even if there isn't something scary on screen, then this movie may not be for you. But I really enjoyed this movie. It's not the scariest movie. I'm not trying to hype it up to be the greatest movie of all time, but I really just enjoyed it. I found it to be a fun watch, and I found that the concept was pretty clever. So a big thanks to all of you guys for watching. As usual, like I said, like button, comment down below, subscribe if you guys have not already done so, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.